2 weeks ago, one of the most shocking results in AEW history, at least in recent history, happened on another edition of Dynamite, and that's because the Gun Club, the Guns, became the AEW World Tag Team Champions. They beat the Acclaimed to, quote-unquote, steal the Tag Team Championships. And the reaction from social media has been pretty much what you'd expect. I mean, overall, the Guns are a really good tag team. It's just a matter of they weren't as over with the crowd as you would have thought. The rivalry itself with the Acclaimed makes sense. They have beef. They have a lot of history with each other. But changing the titles at this point in time, to me, doesn't make sense. Unless a team that the Guns have beef with are going to make a return. Of course, I'm talking about Cash and Dax in FTR, one of the greatest tag teams currently in the world. They've been inactive since pretty much November, December of last year. So it might just be a matter of putting the titles on the Guns so that FTR can come back and take those championships that eluded them back when they were New Japan Pro Wrestling, AAA, and Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions, I believe. I believe they had all three of those belts, but Tony Khan never pulled the trigger on making them AEW World Tag Team Champions, and with good reason. I mean, the Acclaimed was, and still is, pretty over with the audiences both in the arena and at home, so it wouldn't have made sense to put the titles on FTR. But right now, if you look at the tag team division, there aren't really that many matchups that the Guns can have with everyone else other than the Acclaimed and other than a returning FTR that would actually be enticing to AEW fans. They don't really have too much history, and hell, it might just be a case of Tony Khan trying to build the Guns up and trying to build that tag team division up and build everyone to the same level so that we could have a pretty strong tag team division. But again, we'll just have to wait and see. I usually like to give these type of things like a month and a half, 2 months. That way, with that amount of time, once you make a creative decision, once you make a booking decision, the results of where they wanted it to be usually show up about 4 to 6 weeks after that decision is made. Very rarely does it give immediate results. But overall, FTR should be making a return pretty soon to AEW. There have been a lot of rumors swirling around social media about whether or not AEW is still their home, whether or not they're still signed with All Elite Wrestling. And for the most part, they are still signed with AEW. They are still part of the AEW tag division. They are just taking a break from storylines, from matches. And they've been teasing their return on social media quite a bit, if you follow either Dax or Cash on Twitter, for example. So yeah, you would just have to wait and see. Hopefully they return pretty soon because they are one of the best tag teams in the world. And a lot of fans out there have also been mentioning the fact that if they're not still contracted by AEW, if they're not still under contract with Tony Khan, then why not make a return to WWE? And even though Vince McMahon is still running things in WWE, as far as we all know, Triple H is still in charge of creative for both Raw and SmackDown on the main roster. And FTR, back in their NXT days, back when Triple H was running NXT, back when they were the Revival, they were arguably the best tag team in the world, bar none. Whether that be Impact Wrestling at the time, or Ring of Honor Wrestling, even over the Young Bucks, I believe. Yeah. So, if they're not contracted by AEW anymore, then sure, why not come back to WWE? But even WWE's tag team division is pretty stacked. You got the Usos, who are the tag team champions right now. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, they're going to stretch that story as far as possible, but they're going to be reuniting, and they're more than likely going to be winning the tag titles at WrestleMania. So you can't really insert FTR in the tag division right now if they were available. So overall, I think FTR returning to AEW would be the best option possible for all parties involved. FTR, AEW, WWE, everyone involved. Simply because AEW, even though they have a strong tag team division, they kind of split it in half when they created the World Trios Championships. Because you had, right now you have the House of Black going after those titles, I believe. You had the Death Triangle. They were the Trios champions. You have the Elite in the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. They're the current champions. So those three trios of superstars, they should also be available for the tag team division. They would be strong tag team contenders, but they're currently preoccupied with the trios division. One thing that I will say about the AEW tag division is it sucks that Ortiz and Santana have had issues in the past year, 2 years, backstage issues that they haven't been able to resolve, because that team, back in Impact Wrestling, they killed it. And yeah, they're still both a part of AEW, so hopefully one day they can make it work. They can reunite, because when they made their debut for AEW, they were practically, in my opinion, destined to win the tag team titles at one point, and they didn't. So yeah, other than that, again, that's my choice. FTR goes back to AEW, keep building that up, maybe pair that up with a return down the line of a possible return, improbable return of a CM Punk down the line. But overall, I think that's the main reason they put the titles on the Guns, to have FTR return and continue their rivalry and their feud and put the titles back on FTR, the best tag team in AEW today, even though they haven't wrestled in 2 to 3 months. So with that said, what do you think? Do you think FTR comes back to AEW? Do you think FTR should go run out their contract with AEW, go back to WWE under Trips? Or do you agree with the fact that the Guns are the tag team champions right now? What are your thoughts on this entire situation going on with AEW? As far as tonight's concerned, we have another edition of Dynamite, and Tony Khan has a special announcement. And pretty much a lot of people have been saying that it's the announcement of another edition of the Forbidden Door, which, to be honest, I'll be looking forward to that, because the first one was pretty damn good, pretty damn entertaining. It just sucks that Jay White might not be there. So with that said, leave your thoughts, comments, and predictions in the comments section below. I'm Alexis Carrillo. This has been Wrestling Talk, and I'll see you next time.